Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. October 5th, 2017.
The Kuhner Report, presented by Kelly Financial Services. This is the Kuhner Report.
He did not act alone. He did not act alone. My friends, what have we been saying now on this show really since Monday, in the wake of the massacre in Las Vegas? That the official media narrative that they kept trying to hammer into us again and again and again was an absolute lie. And I want to commend all of you in Kuhner country because most of you didn't buy it. And in fact, most of you pushed back immediately. And as we've been reporting on this show now, it's just common sense. Over the last couple of days, it was obvious that Stephen Paddock could not have done the massacre by himself. Well, now Las Vegas police, the sheriff, in an unbelievable press conference last night, came out and effectively said this guy would have had to have been Superman to have pulled this off all by himself. That he clearly had some kind of an accomplice. And so here now, my friends, is the absolute latest. According now to what the FBI, local law enforcement sources are now telling the media, it now appears that Stephen Paddock had an extensive secret life. That's what they're calling it, not my words, their words. That there were two sides to Stephen Paddock. He allegedly, on the surface, was a high-stakes gambler, loved to go cruising, a multimillionaire real estate investor, had multiple properties in Nevada, in California, in Florida, and loved to play video poker. However, they say that he had a double life. They say this double life allegedly may go back decades. And over this period of time, he apparently was amassing an arsenal. They say in particular since last July, Stephen Paddock apparently bought over 33 rifles. They say, and this is now how he's being described by law enforcement in terms of the interviews they've done of friends of his, people who knew him, the boyfriend of his girlfriend's sister. He is described as a very strategic man, highly intelligent, a meticulous planner, who apparently was amassing an arsenal. They say now that he had a huge safe in one of his homes, the size of a refrigerator, which they now believe he used to store made-to-order firearms. He had AK-47s, top-of-the-line AR-15s, AR-10s, numerous handguns. They found, for example, in just one of his cars, 1,600 rounds of ammunition, pounds of explosives. They say in another home they found over 50 pounds of explosives. And so what they now paint is a picture diametrically opposite of what the mainstream media was peddling just 24 to 48 hours ago. In other words, he didn't just snap. That he didn't just wake up one day and say, to hell with it, I'm going to go in there and start shooting people up at the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival. That, in fact, according to them, this was months, if not years, in the making. And that over the last year or so, he was buying over 3 rifles or firearms a month, slowly but surely compiling a huge stockpile to unleash a rain of hellfire. Furthermore, they now say that he deliberately selected that room, the 32nd floor, because it would maximize his range and his angles to be able to inflict as much damage as possible. That, in fact, this attack was very carefully and meticulously planned. In fact, it has now come out, it is breaking, We have it up on WRKO.com. My friends, brace yourself for this. He may have wanted to hit Boston. It has now come out that he was targeting Chicago and Boston. In particular, he had booked 2 rooms, very similar to what he did in the Las Vegas massacre. He had booked 2 rooms overlooking the massive concert, the annual concert in Chicago called the Lollapalooza Festival, where apparently 400,000 music goers go every year. It is in Grant Park. Apparently Malia Obama is a big fan. He booked apparently 1 room at the hotel overlooking Grant Park on August 3rd, and he booked another room for August 4th. They were adjoining rooms. He specifically asked for a room with a view to clearly see Grant Park. In fact, if you look at those 2 rooms, they directly overlook not just the main stage of the Lollapalooza Festival, the concert, but also the main exit and the main entrance. The 2 rooms were booked. However, and he was scheduled to check out the day after the festival. However, by the grace of God, he did not show up. For whatever reason, he did not show up. Now, Tom Winter from NBC is now saying that the FBI also says he wanted to hit Boston. There's no evidence that he came to Boston. There's no evidence that he stayed at a hotel. But apparently, I guess they found plans or notebooks or whatever that he also apparently was scoping possible venues to attack here in Boston. Brittany, all right, it just broke right now. Brittany, tell me.
Stephen Paddock searched for hotels near Fenway Park in Boston, a senior official says.
All right, so
few, if any, hotels have any view of the stands, according to Tom Winter, who just tweeted that out.
Okay, so here is now what's breaking. According to senior FBI officials, he wanted to target Fenway Park. He was looking to book rooms at hotels around Fenway. I know there are often huge concerts at Fenway. Now, apparently, though, none of those hotels have a clear, direct view the way you have, say, in Chicago or certainly at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. Now, furthermore, they say that he deliberately wanted the 2 rooms that he was in. He specifically asked for those 2 rooms at the Mandalay Bay. He specifically asked for that floor. What is also now coming out, and remember we talked about this yesterday, the media has been lying to us on another angle. They keep insisting that he checked into the hotel on September 28th. That's not true. It has now come out that he checked into 1 room on September 25th. The other adjoining room he booked and had access to on September 28th. So he was there several days before, allegedly, he booked one of the rooms. On the 28th, he was there on the 25th. Furthermore, and this is why this is going to break the case wide open, the FBI now admits, and local law enforcement now admits, that multiple witnesses saw Stephen Paddock with a woman, a female, several days before the attack. He was spotted with a female by multiple witnesses. This is corroborated by what we talked about yesterday, that a Mandalay employee had a receipt and put it up on Facebook showing that there was food, room service sent to his room for 2. Cheeseburger and French fries, a potato soup, bagel, cream cheese, 2 Pepsis, and a bottle of water, that there was a second person with him in that hotel room in which room service was sent up. Furthermore, police are now looking for a woman that they say was clearly seen with Stephen Paddock several days before the massacre. Now, did this person directly help him with the attack? Did she help bring up the guns and the ammunition? Did she help coordinate the attack? What role did she play? Was she one of the shooters involved? This is now going to be answered hopefully in the next 24 to 48 hours. But what is now crystal clear is that Stephen Paddock did not and could not have acted alone to pull this off. So what the media was telling us was a lie. He didn't snap. It was obvious, but they kept going with that. And he didn't act alone. He wasn't some lone wolf who just snapped. This was planned out. This was meticulous. This took months to prepare. And he clearly had help, at least one other person. Listen now to Las Vegas Police Chief Joe Lombardo. Roll it, Brittany.
Not to close this case until we run down everything.
Should we ask the terrorist?
Because look at this. I mean, you look at the weapon obtaining, the different amounts of tannerite available. Do you think this was all accomplished on his own? Self-value, face value. You got to make the assumption that he had to have some help at some point, and we want to ensure that that's the answer. Maybe he's a super guy. Maybe he superhero, not a hero, a super. I won't use the word. Maybe he's, super Yahoo that was working out all this on his own. But it'd be hard for me to believe that.
And to that, do we need to ask the
And here's the reason why. Put one and one together, two and two together. Another residence in Reno with several firearms, okay? Electronics and everything else associated with large amounts of ammo. A place in Mesquite. We know that he had a girlfriend. Do you think this is all self-facing? The individuals are just, without talking to somebody, it was sequestered amongst themselves. I mean, come on, folks. These type of investigations have been occurring in the last few years, and we have to evaluate that.
Look, and I said this from the beginning. The word he's looking for is a super weapon. For this guy to have pulled this off all by himself, he's Superman. He's a super weapon. By the way, at 64 years of age, in his shape, in the condition that he's in, a 64-year-old retired accountant, I want you to think about this. So he's hauling up all of these guns, all of this ammunition. He's setting up sniper nests. Look, we've had veterans on the show call in, and I've spoken to them. You got to see these guys, 25, 30 years of age, 6'4", 6'5", 240 pounds, solid muscle. They're saying, Jeff, I was in Iraq and Afghanistan. I oversaw it. I was engaged in a sniper's nest. It's physically exerting. You got to be strong. You got to have the stamina to do something like this. There's no way a 64-year-old guy could have done this all by himself. So it was obvious to me from the get-go that he clearly had an accomplice. At least one, if not more. I think there's no question about that now. And so the question now is this. Who was that person in the room with him that was getting room service? Who was that person that was seen with Stephen Paddock now by multiple witnesses? And again, I go back to this point that the media keeps trying to suppress. Remember the Hispanic woman, or at least described as an Hispanic woman, by multiple witnesses at the concert, who said 45 minutes before the attack, she ran in and said, "You're all going to blank and die. You're all going to blank and die," either as a warning or taunting them. And in fact, she was so disturbing them because they were so, the way she said it with such ferocity, with such vehemence, it was so disturbing and it bothered them so much that they literally called security to have her thrown out. What was that the woman he was with? And what role, if any, did she play? My friends, the plot thickens. But what is now clear is that the media story that this was a lone wolf who just snapped was one big lie. 617-266 6868 is the number. Let me ask you this. Who do you think was involved? What do you think his motivation was? And how deep does this go? 617-266-6868. More with your calls. Next. 1225 here on the great WRKO. 617-266-6868. Okay. Not only did he not act alone, that he clearly had at least one accomplice, now they're saying maybe even several other accomplices. He planned to escape and survive. Now, this is highly unusual. Usually when somebody commits a mass murder, a mass shooting like this, they expect to go down in flames. Now, you're on the 32nd floor, allegedly. You're shooting out, you're blowing out 2 windows. There you are, massacring people at a concert venue below. You're going to be surrounded by SWAT. You're going to be surrounded by cops rushing in. Either they're going to shoot you or you're going to jump out the window and fall to your death. Yet, what they now say is that not only was this meticulously planned months and months ahead of time, with at least one other accomplice, but for whatever reason, he planned and actually expected to survive and escape. Listen now to the sheriff. Roll it, Britain.
This is my assumption, only my assumption, and nobody's been able to dispel my assumption as of today. I believe because of his countermeasures placed in the peephole in the hallway, he observed the security guard, and he was in fear that he was about to be breached. So he was doing everything possible to figure out how he could escape at that point. His concern was personal concern versus what was occurring down below him.
And let me throw one more log on the fire. And then I want to open it up to you, 617-266-6868. According now to what the police are telling us, he had 3 cameras. He had 1 camera in the peephole. That's what the sheriff is referring to look outside, as well as 1 in a food cart just outside the door to see if SWAT or the police, in this case an unarmed security guard, who he shot, and that's how they knew he was in that room when he approached the door. But there was a 3rd camera. The 3rd camera was inside the room. And it was initially speculated that he had this to record himself as he was allegedly on those snipers' nests massacring everybody. But that's right, Brittany. He didn't record anything. So what they're now telling us is he had that camera in the room, but it didn't record anything. In other words, forgive me for being a little skeptical here, but I have to be. So the camera that could literally show exactly what took place in that room, if there was 1 shooter, 2 shooters, accomplices, whatever, suddenly it didn't record, it didn't work. But the other 2 cameras worked so well that he actually shot the unarmed guard when that unarmed guard approached the door to see if the shooting was coming from that room. Again, something doesn't pass the smell test. 617-266-6868. Let's go to Glenn in Quincy. Go ahead, Glenn.
Jeff, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. I have a problem with the 52 minutes. My first question is, if he killed himself because he planned all these attacks, which I don't believe he did, then something happened in that room. Because the 52 minutes, what happened in that 52 minutes? Was there a second shooter? Did his gun backfire? Did he die slowly? Because after something like that, wouldn't you be amped up? And you'd want to run. You'd want to get out of there, wouldn't you?
You better believe it.
Because why did he stop shooting? I'm thinking the gun backfired. It slowly killed him. And the second shooter, I'm thinking, too. There's 2 windows, 2 shooters. And, Jeff, I don't know if you listened to Savage last night. I did. He had a very smart guy on talking to him last night. This is all I heard. Said he was an FBI informant and an arms dealer.
Glenn, I've been in contact with Michael. Thank you for that call. Look, he played some incredible callers on his show yesterday. One of them, several of them, in fact, were witnesses at the concert. Now it's coming out that there could have been other shooters. Witnesses saying we saw other shooters. We're going to play some of that audio for you coming up next. First, let's take it to Lori Grandy. Lori, do you have the latest update for us?
This is my assumption, only my assumption, and nobody's been able to dispel my assumption as of today. I believe because of his countermeasures placed in the peephole in the hallway, he observed the security guard, and he was in fear that he was about to be breached. So he was doing everything possible to figure out how he could escape at that point. His concern was personal concern versus what was occurring down below.
1237 here on the great WRKO. Okay, my friends. Now we know he didn't act alone, that he had at least one accomplice, maybe several accomplices. They are now desperately trying to find a woman. Multiple witnesses have now confirmed that they saw with Stephen Paddock several days before the shooting. Furthermore, this is very unusual. He didn't plan to die. He didn't expect to die. He, in fact, looks like he had a plan of escape. He actually planned to survive and get out of this. Furthermore, which is the question now that has been haunting this shooting really almost from the beginning, were there multiple shooters? And not necessarily in the same room. There could have been shooters placed in other positions. Now, on YouTube, on social media, there are clearly 3 or 4 videos, which look very authentic to me. I don't know if you've seen them. I've seen them, whereby they claim to show, you can see flashes of light coming from either several floors, the 4th floor, I believe, several floors below the 32nd floor, or from other areas around the Mandalay Bay. So you look at YouTube videos, it does appear like there were flashes of light, which seems like gunfire, coming from other directions. Furthermore, what has now been confirmed by the FBI and Las Vegas police, there were 2 massive, they're almost like huge white cones. They are tankers full of jet fuel for the airport nearby to fuel the planes. They now say it was clear that he was deliberately not just trying to kill as many people as possible, but that he was trying to shoot those massive tanks, those fuel tanks, with explosives in his car nearby to blow up those 2 jet fuel tanks, and I mean, just literally just blow downtown Las Vegas sky high. By the grace of God, he wasn't able to achieve this. So his intent was not just to kill as many people as possible, it was to unleash a massive explosion. And then finally, the man I filled in for many years, a good friend of mine, a mentor in some ways, Dr. Michael Savage, on his show last night, had several callers call in, witnesses, they were there at the concert. One of them, Gail, says that she saw multiple shooters. Listen now to Gail on the Michael Savage Show. Roll it, Brittany.
Like somebody, I'm not saying this by any means, but to me, it sounded like somebody was actually walking from the crowd from west to east through the crowd and shooting, because everybody was going in one direction because there's no way out. And then they would stop, and then it would be like higher pitches and then no sound. So, and then the sound would start again, but they were on top of each other, it sounded. I was freaking out, obviously.
Well, hold on, you just said they would be on top of each other, meaning the higher sounding bullet and then the lower sounding, or let's say the sound of one gun higher, then lower, and they were coming at you at the same time?
Yes, they sounded at the same time, and the one that was lower kept getting closer sounding to us. And I'm thinking, your brain goes through all these images and thoughts, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it sounds like there's somebody on the ground that is shooting. And what was so bizarre about this is that Mandalay Bay was on our right. This creep was on the, 32nd floor. And the girl that was standing right beside me, maybe 7, 8 inches behind me, got shot straight in her stomach, right above her belly button. Now, how does a bullet come straight down and make a left turn and hit her in the stomach? And
there are other multiple witnesses now who are coming forward and saying they were clear. They saw multiple shooters. They felt, as she did, the way they described the bullets, they said it had to be multiple shooters, and that they saw flashes of light. They saw multiple shooters. So, which then to me begs the question, if there were multiple shooters, A, why is the media refusing to report this? And B, my suspicion is, this now starts to look like terrorism. This now starts to look like terrorism in a very serious way. And so my question now to you is this. Do you think there were multiple shooters? And really, what the hell do you think happened in Mandalay? 617-266-6868. Jim in the truck. Go ahead, Jim.
Hello, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Jim?
Hey, living the dream, or trying to. But I'll tell you, Jeff, in all seriousness, I mean, being around the weaponry, I've been around all these years. I'm in my 60s, okay? And let me tell you something. Just sit back and listen to the tape of a shot. All you got to do is listen to the amount of shots and the time lapses between either reloads or weapon changeover, okay? Too quick. No matter what, nobody, absolutely no one can move that fast as a single entity with multiple weapons. It's just not possible. You just count. You just count between the shots. Just listen to the distance. The distance of time.
Jim, I agree with you. Jim, I agree with you. I think, and Jim, thank you for that call. Look, I think you're completely right. Now, I can go on. I mean, look, it's the official narrative from the mainstream media is so full of holes, it's not even funny. Let me just blow a few more. Thank you, Jim. Let me just blow a few more holes in this. Let me just blow a few more holes. If you're an expert sniper, and now this guy apparently has no military background, but apparently now he's been doing this or training for this now allegedly for years, okay? You don't need to blow out 2 windows. You don't. You don't need to have 2 snipers' nests. When you're on the 32nd floor, 1 is enough. It's more than enough. You got a clear view of the concert, a clear view of the venue. It's just like shooting fish in a barrel. So he doesn't need to have 2 holes or 2 windows blown out. So why the second one? Furthermore, the police, and I can play the audio for you, they're everywhere, kept saying again and again, multiple shooters, reports of multiple shooters. In fact, the first responders, the fire department, are now answering questions right now as I speak to you about, the response time and why was it a bit slow in terms of criticism? They said, I'll tell you why it was slow. We were getting reports of multiple shooters. So we couldn't just rush in because you don't know where the multiple shooters are. So we don't want our guys to get cut down in a hail of bullet fire. So you've now got witnesses saying there were multiple shooters. You've got police at the time saying when the incident happened, there were multiple shooters. You have the fire department saying we couldn't go in quick because there were reports of multiple shooters. You've got the FBI now admitting there was at least 1 or several accomplices. Don't tell me this was a lone wolf. Now, I want to put somebody else on the line right now. He is somebody I've been speaking with. He is a veteran police officer. He served 2 tours in Iraq. He's somebody who trains snipers. This guy knows what he's talking about. I want you to listen to what this guy has to say. Let's just call him Slash. Slash, thanks for calling in. How are you, Slash?
Doing well. How are you, Jeff?
Good. Slash, please tell everybody what you told me on the phone a couple days ago.
Yeah, so in our private conversation, something that one of the other callers the other day was starting to touch on, but no one has really delved too deep into, is just the weapons that he had and the ranges that he was shooting at. They were, for the weapons that he had AR-15s, basically M4s, which the military has, and AR-10s, which shoot a larger round, which is basically the same round as an AK-47. At the distance and the angles that he was shooting at, quarter mile up to a half mile away, roughly, to where the crowd was, those rounds were coming to the tail end of their maximum effective range. Now, obviously, the rounds are still coming in. They're coming in fast, and they're going to do a lot of damage. But someone who isn't trained properly and someone who doesn't have the foresight and the knowledge to understand the trajectory and the terminal ballistics of those bullets as they're dropping at such a height, those rounds begin to tumble when they reach their maximum effective range, and they start to drop. Now, if you're shooting from a tall height like that, your point of aim, basically where you're actually aiming, your point of impact are going to be completely off. But it doesn't take much to readjust. So what I think happened and why there might be so much death is because those rounds were hitting much higher than where he was actually aiming, which I believe led to probably more headshots, unfortunately. And I think that's why we're getting more damage. But the biggest turning point for me in selling this to me that he was trained, someone told him what to do. I'm still not 100% if there was other shooters there, but someone told him how to do this. He was trained, he was at least coached in how, the explosives thing put me over the edge. Unless you have some knowledge of explosives, I'm sorry, you're not going to go online and just start building this stuff on your own unless you're just crazy. And to have all the components and the necessity and able to build all these bombs that he allegedly had, carry all the weapons, execute such a massive, massive kill zone in a shooting, it boggles my mind that one sole man, an accountant, did all this.
What you're saying, Slash, is exactly what the sheriff said. It's almost impossible.
Right. This is on the level of someone who has some military background, has at least been through basic training, maybe in combat. Insurgents, terrorists, they have a lot of the same training. They go through a lot of the same training. They understand, basically, the amount of damage they can do with what they have. And to another point, I think I was listening to some audio earlier about the Las Vegas police. When they were trying to move up onto the building, they were receiving direct automatic gunfire. It was clear to me that it was direct incoming fire, small arms fire. And they commented, he's firing right at us. Now, again, that means he's got some training. He knew the avenues of approach for police. He was in a hardened position. I'm not convinced that he thought he was going to escape. If he did, he didn't do what we call in the military as proper pace planning. He didn't have his primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency planning in place. If he did, he probably would have escaped, which is what a lot of these mass shooters fail. They do their pre-planning, they execute, but then they fail to realize how they can finish the mission, and he failed.
Slash, just again, I want to reiterate, you're not just some guy off the street. You're in law enforcement, let's just say that, a lot of experience. You served multiple tours in Iraq. You're a veteran. You have experience training snipers very quickly. You know how to operate. Sorry.
Not training snipers, Jeff. No, I went through what it's called the Army Military Police Marksman Observer course. Basically, It's a sniper course.
That's okay, a sniper course. Okay, so you're a trained sniper yourself. Let me ask you this. Could a 64-year-old retired accountant, I mean Tubby, okay, a flabby guy like him, not to be insulting, but that's what he was, out of shape, could this guy operate two snipers' nests on the 32nd floor with the window shattered in the Nevada heat? It is the desert. Could this guy have the stamina and the capability to do something like that?
Well, I tell you what, he would be extremely, extremely exhausted. That would take the life out of pretty much any 22-year-old, never mind a 64-year-old overweight with clearly medical conditions. And to be shooting, and I've seen the pictures that were released of a scoped weapon. Any precision shots that he took, and I'm not sure that he actually took any, that I haven't figured out yet. That's going to be 100 times more difficult under the amount of stress that he's put himself under by moving around, shooting, changing magazines, changing weapons. It's someone who's going to do something like that with the weapons he has, the optics that he has on the weapons. That takes someone with a high skill set. That's not something an average Joe with allegedly no firearms background can do.
So I'm up against it, Slash. 15 seconds. What's your ultimate conclusion?
He wasn't operating alone. He was definitely coached, trained in some form, some way, some fashion. I would like to see if we can figure out if there were other shooters. I'm not dismissing that at this point.
Slash, thank you for that call, and keep up the great work. Stay safe, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. 617-266-6868. More with your calls next. 12:57 here on the great WRKO. Matthew in Newburyport. Go ahead, Matthew.
How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Matthew?
I'm doing very well. I just wanted to comment and say that anyone who's familiar with belt-fed weapons knows that first blast, the first video that came out with the sound of firing, that's not an AR with a bump stock. That's an M240 right there, without a doubt. I highly recommend you go and check that out on YouTube. It's proof that M240 machine gun was firing instead of that's the YouTube video's name. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that we know this guy's girlfriend is out in the Philippines. She's in the UAE. She's out in different areas around the world. I think, and this is just, a personal opinion, but I would have to say that this person, this lady, she's doing some kind of dirty dealing with firearms and getting weapons from point A to point B to the Philippines, maybe, who knows? But we know that there's ISIS in the Philippines. We know that there's bad people that want guns. And this guy was a millionaire, but the place that he got his millions from, I think it's from guns and not from real estate.
So, Matt, you think there's a possible terrorist connection here?
Well, I feel like that is a possibility. I don't know. I can't obviously make a statement say, yes, this is terrorism, but, there's too many connecting dots. I think this person was involved in the arms trade in some way. He had too many guns, had too much stuff, too much technology to not have been involved in something like that. Because, owning a peephole camera is not something that a gun collector just does for.
Matt, thank you very much for that call. Well, listen, you anticipated now my next question. Coming up next, was it ISIS? Was Stephen Paddock a sleeper agent for ISIS? That story, your calls next.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 93.7 WEEI HD2 Lawrence, Boston. It's 1 o'clock.